gotta go fast on this oven as the human when you're working by yourself. We actually see this oven for what we want to do with it, meaning we want to keep some of our ornamental scoring going, perhaps as a two-man station. But the second person is not quite here with me today, so I have to make it work solo. I also don't have something that we had at the garage when we were using boards. I guess I just didn't think about it. It's a byproduct of our proof blend flour, the sifted out bran. So the wheat berry starts at 100%, and we sift out the largest outer shell of the wheat berry, basically the 15% outermost layer that's the most coarse, most dense. It has a lot of flavor, some nutrients too, but it makes the bread really tough. So we use a whole grain flour that is taking out that last 15%. Now, all the properties that it has in nature, meaning it's kind of that dry outer crust of the wheat berry, make it a really great material for basically putting down on boards atop of which the loaf sits. Oddly, it still ends up in the bread because basically you now have a board with bran on the bottom. You stick dough on, some of that bran sticks to the dough. So we're using the whole wheat berry, but splitting out its rolls, keeping the best 85% for the dough itself, and leaving the worst 15% for basically the dusting of the board, so that we can easily basically take bread from these boards and slide it where they need to go. So this is our kind of old way meeting our new way, because we think it's kind of the key to working the speed of the oven. So my goal today is to turn to the second round of the 4 decks in which I'm baking bread almost consecutively. I think it's going to take boards to do that. People think that you can like take a loaf directly from the oven and somehow consume it, and that's some sort of ideal. Like we have this like commercial in our mind of going to the grocery store for like the bread that just came out of the oven. It's all kind of it's a facade, because that bread that you get at the grocery store has already been baked, and they're just basically touching it up in the oven for like the last minute or two, so that they can use that sort of marketing gimmick. In reality, a loaf of bread can be consumed fresh out of the oven, but that really means like a few hours. A whole loaf of bread, I probably wouldn't really cut into it for, even with a knife, for 2-3 hours. It's still setting, it's still finishing. So I'm baking sliced sourdough right now, and with sliced sourdough, our goal is just to do the functional scoring. Since I have a nice fresh blade, it's really easy. And each week that I'm doing this process, it's currently slightly changing. We're still trying to figure out the best workflow around this oven. In the garage, our workflows in the beginning changed from day to day as well. And it took a really long time there to find the best workflows, because it started as a residential garage. This place started this time as an artisan bakery, but a artisan bakery in theory. And so now we're sort of trying to figure out what it means to be an artisan bakery in practice. Also going to give it that steam release. So today basically I went back to more of an original model with the speed rack behind me. just unloading directly from it. But what I'm adding to it is now the second round of bread that we load while this one's baking will actually end up on boards pre-scored, ready to load before the decks are ready, so that I'm not scoring on this belt for any amount of time. I can basically just quickly get in and out of the belt for that second load. We've determined that in order to like sort of keep efficiency, we can unload and then really be ready to load that deck very quickly after we unload the previous one. And if we're scoring on this belt, that just becomes harder. There's more time that passes in between decks and loads. So that's the adjustment that we're making here, is that I basically right now have 30 minutes left on that upper deck to bake. Within 30 minutes, I'm going to have bread ready to load into it before those loaves come out. But I'm going to switch to pre-scoring that bread so that it's easy to transfer. So basically, we're going to do this a few more times to load up the rest of the chambers of the oven, and then quickly jump on the table to get the next load ready that way. Now I'm thinking about how to prepare the next oven load of bread in a way that allows me to keep pace with the oven. What we have not successfully done in this bakery yet is essentially unload this oven and have it ready to go right away for the next bake. We've been struggling to sort of attain that. And I'm going to start basically filling that rack with scored loaves resting on these boards. So now they're fully scored, technically ready to be baked. And because our dough is strong, they can happily live in this state for quite some time. This dough came out of a cold walk-in, and so nothing's really happening to this bread in the next immediate short term. We're going to be able to basically prepare all these and then directly load them into the oven. Meanwhile, you can see that that top deck is the closest. There's like a gradient of how far into this bake we are going on, from left to right, top down. And what I want to put myself in a position to do is essentially the moment that I unload that top deck, I want to have bread ready on standby to reload, so I can most efficiently even use my loading device. I'm going to work it in tandem. So basically I have 13 minutes to get as many boards ready. I actually really need quite a bit more. So for me, 3 boards equals a deck, a side of a deck. So I need 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24 of these prepared boards to basically match the oven. Although I can do this now in time, because not all the oven decks are going to be ready at the exact same moment in time. So basically I've just created a secondary workflow, and this is really what person number 2 would be doing, except person number 2 has a little bit more of a luxury of time than I do at the oven, where I'm basically loading and unloading at the mercy of the oven. This person can work a little bit ahead of the game. Does look like a good pull. Bread looks to be in pretty good shape. for our sliced sourdough, I need to move this rack over for the next workflow here. And then unload onto my cooling rack. This is a pretty nice color bake for sliced loaves. We might inch a little bit darker if these were going to remain whole, but given that they're going to get sliced, softness becomes a little bit more desirable in sliced bread. Here is the real trick of the equation. This is already in the load position, and now I'm going to essentially pass off 4 loaves of bread, or 12 loaves of bread onto here. And I'll readjust them on the board. I don't mind doing that. Bran would have served me a lot better than the rice flour, but it is what it is. So they're mobile, but delicate. The real test is whether they will measure up. So I haven't even taken the loaves out the other side there. See, the problem is I'm already racing my oven. I'm gonna go to the unload setting. Now unload this guy. Okay, it worked out. So you can see the difficulty of the multitasking here, but it requires second person. I've already got another oven ready. So that's the thing that we're finding tricky still with this oven is essentially keeping pace. I've already got my next one ready to unload, and yet I have loaves that I can easily put in. So you could picture me right now on the other side, if I could double myself, as being able to basically turn over those ready scored loaves. Instead, what I'm going to do is go ahead and proceed to unload the next deck and just be grateful that I have one deck already baking again. What's nice is that having a much better success rate unloading the oven without loaves getting trapped in there. I haven't had to touch the peel yet. Of course, probably on the next one that I do, I'll have to touch the peel now that I said something. So I have not enough to load the full oven, so I'm not gonna bother. I need to score more bread. Basically what I want you to do is score bread onto boards.
Okay.
And rice flour the board since we don't have bran.
Okay. Just following orders. So funny, I'm like used to having 3 boards because of how we used to do it. 3 boards was our maximum per deck, but I could really do all the boards.
So you can go ornamental if you want. I kind of want to test the rhythm like with 2 people.
With ornamental square?
Yeah. I think there's a llama over there unless I keep...
Yeah, I have one.
Okay. Cool.
How many are you doing per deck?
12.
Okay. So this
12
is...
per side.
Right. No rice flour on top? Or yes, rice?
What?
Do you want rice flour on top?
That's up to you. So now we're really going to get to test this workflow. Essentially, I loaded half the deck. Amanda is now getting the other half ready, and she's already going into ornamental scoring because I would now be shifting around here and just unloading the bread onto the boards right now. I'd be significantly behind, even if I was loading directly in the oven. I'll just pass that right back to you. It's also a little smoother because she just placed this dough on the boards. And so now once again, we're ready to load, but we have a little bit more artful scoring. And it certainly beat the timing that I could go most efficiently as one person. I think this is a great example of, can I give you this one too? Combining an old skill with a new one. And I've got to trap steam in this deck, so always checking the equipment to make sure it's ready. So here. It's kind of nice to feel a semblance of control again with the oven. She's already working on turning over the next batch of bread, and we're starting to find a new rhythm. There's always something happening at the ovens. You can't really step away for long. Looks like that upper right hand deck is just about there. That last few minutes can make a really meaningful difference. Liking them a little bit more this time, so I'm gonna put them away. Amanda, can you replace these? Can we switch spots really quick? Are you able to grab two? Your gloves?
These are giant gloves. This is like my finger ends like there.
So you're gonna actually go right back into that one more time.
Okay.
As soon as I load. Oh, that was really dumb. I was supposed to wait for that steam release. Now I just steamed my freshly baked bread here. And took away steam actually from, am I caught on here? I'm caught on your rack over there. Well, we caught the oven. I have a few minutes before that second deck now needs to unload, and I've already got one side ready to go. She's got 3 remaining boards to score in total for this bake of sliced bread that we have today. We ended up doing 6 decks worth for now for this first half of our Saturday bake, basically. These are all the loaves that are destined for slicing a little bit later. And so they happen in the kind of the first part of the day. The more time they get to cool, the easier it is to run them through the slicer, which is why we like to get these done earlier in the day. But this is really the first time that we've achieved a rhythm where we are actually keeping pace with the oven, where this person actually can not be in a state of panic unloading and loading because of how fast things are moving.
How many in total loaves did you do?
240.
Couldn't you, in theory, pre-do all of your loaves for the entire oven?
Yeah, but then I think we'd have to use the walk-in to keep them from going too far like we did at the garage recently. Like,
I don't think so. If you, especially with sliced loaves, you can just. And how many would that take?
well,
3 is 1 deck, so.
3 is a deck, yeah.
So
No, 3 is a side of a deck.
right. So 10 of these.
3 speed racks is 2 oven loads.
20. So you would need to basically 1.5 of these full for each deck.
For each oven
For each
load, yeah.
oven load.
So 3 racks is
Then
2.
when you're baking, you can just be working on the next batch, just like
Yeah.
we did at the other.
And at that point, you can do ornamental scoring all day because you've created enough of a workflow where I'm taking them as I need to, you're scoring them as you need to, and you're interrupting your scoring to help me unload at times so that we can just quickly keep it going.
Yeah, but
Meanwhile,
I think even one person, and that's what I'm saying, if you're one person working the oven,
oh, if you worked way ahead, so like you'd start scoring,
just score. Instead of score, load, score, load, score, load, just score.
get way ahead, and then basically do the whole lot. We should try that
Next week.
next week or tonight.
Yeah. Who's baking tonight?
Logie.
Logan.
Yeah.